Hi, Corral again. This is about our fourth video on verbs. And this time I'm not talking about, whether the verb is regular or irregular. I'm not talking about it being the most important part of grammar. I'm not talking about when the action happened. I haven't even done that yet. What I'm talking about is how you write the verb. In what way is the verb written? Let me give you an example. First I'm going to do English and then I'm going to do Spanish, okay? En español voy a hablar de cómo se escribe el verbo. It's different. It's different. I'm not going to, it's different. Now someone who speaks French or Portuguese or Italian would get what I'm doing in Spanish, not so much in English. Maybe someone who speaks a Germanic language would understand it better in English. But so let me just do it first in English. The way a verb is written has nothing to do with the tense. It just tells you the form of the verb. So in English, verbs generally have either 4 or 5 forms. And those are the only ways you can write a verb. Let me give you an example. When a verb begins, when you're talking about a verb, for example, you say, well, for me, the verb to go is difficult. Notice you didn't just say the verb go. You said the verb to go, where the verb to talk is easy. So you're talking about the verb. When you're talking about a verb, or sometimes when there are 2 verbs in a sentence, and you say, I want. Now, what action are you talking about? I want to go. He continued to eat. When a verb begins with the to, and then you have the verb to walk, to talk, to eat, to sleep, that's called the infinitive form. Now, that's only used in very particular cases. When you have 2 verbs in a sentence and the second verb takes the infinitive. But not all the time does the second verb take the infinitive. For example, if you say, I love eating, that's not the infinitive form, right? That's the present progressive form. And even that's not really a form because all of this is the simple form of the verb in ing. But you can call it what you wish. And not present progressive, excuse me, present participle. Okay. So, in English you have to plus the verb, to talk, to walk, to sleep, to eat. In Spanish you don't have that. That would make no sense. That wouldn't be well, you couldn't do it. You couldn't hablar. No, you couldn't do it. In Spanish, what you have are verbs that have different endings. There are verbs that have AR endings, there are verbs that have ER endings, and there are verbs that have IR endings. And each ending tells you, right, how you conjugate the verb, right? So, sometimes you use the verb in its infinitive form when you're speaking, like for example, you have 2 verbs in a sentence. Quiero hablar, quiero comer, quiero vivir. So quiero is conjugated, I, yo quiero, tú quieres, ellos quieren, nosotros queremos, él quiere. But the second verb is in infinitive form. Now once again, just like in English, not every time you have 2 verbs in a sentence, it's a second verb in infinitive form, but much more than in English. Much more than in English. Okay, so that's called the infinitive. When you are no longer using the infinitive form, and now you want to put the verb in its different tenses, in English, what do? You take off the to. In Spanish, what do? You take off the AR, the AR, or the ER. So you take off the AR, ER, and IR. Y ya tiene la raíz. You have the verb in its form. So in English, you have the verb talk. And in Spanish, you have H-A-B-L, H-A-B-L. I'm going to do it, lo voy a hacer en español, okay? You have H-A-B-L, or comer, C-O-M-A, or vivir, B chica, E, B chica. Now in English, I'm going to also put the verb eat, and you'll see why in a second. Because eat is an irregular verb in some of the most important tenses in English. Okay, so now the simple form in English, I'm leave it. So you have the verb talk. right? That's only the form. I'm not saying like talk now. I'm saying talk. So you can use that form in the present tense. You, we, they talk. Then have that form and then add an S to it. He, she, it talks. But you can also use it in the future. You, we, they, he, she, it will talk. So you put it will in front of it and then put talk. Now you have the future. And then for the British it would be I shall, we shall talk. In the conditional, still using that simple form, I, you, we, they, he, she, it would talk. Now, if you are dealing with an irregular verb, to eat, for example, it still follows the rule as talk. We're going to get into the next one when we're talking about the past form and the past participle. That's when it's going to get a little bit more complicated. In Spanish, that H-A-B-L, H-A-B-L, C-O-M-A, be chica y be chica. What you do to those forms is that you attach an ending. So let's say the verb hablar, right? And then you have H-A-B-L, H-A-B-L. But you want to put it in the past, you want to put it in the present tense. So you just attach an O to it. You have hablo. Let's say you want to put in the pretérito. You just attach the A with an accent, A. So it's hablé. Let's say you want to put it in the, let me see, what tense would you put it in? Can't think of a tense right now. Because this is where it's different. With the infinitive in Spanish, you use it a lot more than you use the infinitive in English. So in English, you basically use the infinitive when you want to talk about a verb. And the infinitive is to talk. But when you have two verbs in a sentence, in Spanish, you use the infinitive more. For example, if you want to talk about the future in Spanish, you have the entire verb, hablar, and then you add an accent in E, hablaré, for you. Once again, you want to use the infinitive, and you want to talk about what you would do. You have the entire verb, hablar, and then add ia to it, hablaría. Right? Because it's so different. It might not be very wise to mix these a little bit, but I want to do both so that you can see how you cannot translate both. You know, you can't translate from one to the other as easily. You can translate ideas sometimes. But the way the grammar goes, it's not the same. Because Spanish uses their infinitive much more than in English. But let's say for the simple form, you want to use, you want to use a subjunctive. If you don't know what the subjunctive is, in about the 5th or 6th tape, we're going to talk about that when we're talking about moods. But the subjunctive is, if you do know, the ER verb takes the AR ending. So you would have HABL, and let's say you want that I talk. It's quieres que hable. Not hable, but hable. So you would have the simple form and just adding the E to it. Right? But the point that I'm making is the following. The form of the verb is very different than the tense of the verb. So, let's go when you're talking about the past tense form. Even in English, it gets sort of complicated. You know what? This video is running a little bit longer than I would like. So what I'm going to do is divide it into 2. So when I come back, I'm going to talk about the past tense form and the past participle, both in Spanish and in English. And believe me, that'll take a good 10 minutes just for those 2 little things. So once again, this is Coralla Fickler McLean at iStudyGuides.com. And I just want to throw this in once again, show you our new logo. So when you see our products, you'll see the new logo. Okay, once again, it's done by Abdul or Matsin Kadeh Fickler. Thank you. Bye.